Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Shannon and today I'm going to be counting down my top 10 favourite Christmas films. Before we get into the video, I would like to say that this is not set in stone. This is just what I currently enjoy watching, and honestly it could change at any minute, but at the time of filming this, these are my top 10 favourite films. To be honest with you, it has recently changed because I have watched a film that I've never seen before and that has actually made it onto my list, so definitely stay tuned to find out what that is. But without further ado, let's just get into the video. So in at number 10 we have a film that I don't think many people have heard of, to be honest with you. You'll definitely be familiar with the story, but maybe not with the film itself, and that is Christmas Carol the movie. So as you can probably tell, this is an animated version of the classic novel by Charles Dickens, A Christmas Carol. This is one that I've had and have watched for years. I think it's one of the first Christmas films that I actually had, and I think that is why it's still on this list. Every year I go back to it and I just completely fall in love. It does also have an amazing cast, which you probably wouldn't be aware of. Some of the big voices in this film are Kate Winslet, Nicolas Cage, Tracy Vance, Michael Gambon and Simon Callow, and that's just to name a few. So we have a stellar cast with a classic Christmas story, and honestly, what more could you want? In the Christmas Carol we follow a man named Ebenezer Scrooge, and he is someone who hates Christmas and is quite horrible to everyone around him. He treats people quite poorly and just feels like he's better than everyone else. So on one particular Christmas, or rather Christmas Eve, he is visited by three ghosts: the ghost of Christmas past, the ghost of Christmas present and the ghost of Christmas future, and they all give him some sort of warning to change his ways before it gets too late for him. And yeah, I just absolutely love this story so much. I love that we have so many different versions and retellings of it, but this is definitely a classic that I keep going back to. Next up, and quite low on my list actually, is Home Alone. So as you can see here, I have the box set, which means it has all four films in it, and honestly I love them all. My favourites are definitely the first and second one though, because they are just classics and I don't think it gets better than that. And I feel bad for having it this low down on my list because it is one that I absolutely love, and they are films that I keep going back to because I just feel like they're such a fun time. Definitely gets you in the spirit of Christmas whilst also having a very mischievous twist to it. I'm sure you're all very familiar with Home Alone and the story behind it, but if you're not aware, we follow a boy named Kevin McAllister, and one Christmas he is meant to go on vacation with his family. However, things don't go to plan and Kevin is actually left home alone whilst his family goes on holiday, and in that time two burglars try and break into his house. And instead of calling the police or trying to get in touch with his family, Kevin decides to tackle the burglars head on and creates a load of different booby traps for them throughout his house. And yeah, it's just honestly brilliant. It's such a good pick-me-up if you're feeling a bit down. It's one that I can turn to always make me feel happy and just have a good laugh because, like I said, it's a classic and it is just such a funny story, and it's one that I haven't yet watched this year but I definitely plan on doing, and I really need to get to that soon. Number 8 on my list is a very new watch actually, and it's the one that I mentioned that would be new to this list, and that is the Christmas Chronicles, which is a relatively new release. It came out in 2018 actually, and the sequel, the Christmas Chronicles 2, has just been released on Netflix. So my sister actually stayed over at my house the other week and we were looking for a film to watch, and I kind of wanted a Christmassy one to start getting into the holiday spirit, and we stumbled upon the Christmas Chronicles and I thought, you know what, why not just give it a go? If it's bad, it's bad. If it's good, then great. And guys, I loved it so much. I was laughing, I cried, and I just had such a good time watching it. So in this one we follow Kate and Teddy Pierce, who are brother and sister, and they hatch a plan to try and catch Santa Claus on Christmas Eve. But when the plan goes awry, the kids join forces with Saint Nick himself to try and save Christmas before it's too late. If you haven't watched this guys, I would highly recommend it. For me personally, I'm normally someone that sticks to the classic films and I keep going back to them and rewatching them every year, but I am so glad that I stumbled upon this film because it's definitely one of my new favourites and it's definitely one that I will watch countless times. I haven't yet watched the second one, so I can't give you guys my opinion on that one, but the first one was so good, and I would just highly recommend you all watch it to get into the Christmas spirit because it is a very modern take on the story of Santa Claus and it's just absolutely brilliant. Next up we have a film that is quite a lot of people's favourites, and I feel like I'm going to get a lot of hate for placing it 7th on this list, but that is Love Actually. Actually. Like many other people, I love this film, but I didn't actually discover it until about 3 years ago, so that was the first time I watched it. So I feel like it doesn't have that nostalgic connection to it, if that makes sense, and it's not the first one that I would turn to if I fancied watching a Christmas film. But saying that, I do absolutely love it. It's such a fun time. We have a load of different famous faces in here, such as Hugh Grant, Liam Neeson, Colin Firth, Emma Thompson, Keira Knightley, Bill Nighy, Rowan Atkinson. Honestly, the list just goes on, and we follow a load of different storylines from these different characters, and the way it's done is just absolutely brilliant. And it just says here, the hilarious Love Actually explores the ups and downs of relationships in the weeks building up to Christmas. Boyfriends and girlfriends, husbands and wives, fathers and sons, and rock stars and managers all combine to make Love Actually not just one story, but 10 very different ones. Because if you look hard enough, you will find Love Actually is all around. Again, it's another one that will make you laugh, it'll make you cry, because you just feel for all the characters, and all the situations are quite different. Some are very happy, some are quite sad, and yeah, it's just a really good rom-com that is perfect to watch in the lead up to Christmas. In at number 6, we have The Polar Express, and this is quite funny because I actually used to hate this film. It just really creeped me out how real the characters look, even though it's an animation, and for some reason my mind was just not comprehending the fact that they weren't actually real actors. But I have since gotten over that weird dislike, and this is now one of my all-time favourite Christmas films to turn to. So in this film, a train appears outside this young boy's house on Christmas Eve night, and he decides to board it, and by doing so he embarks on an extraordinary journey to the North Pole to meet Santa Claus himself. But it's not all smooth sailing, and his life takes a turn after he encounters a load of different people that ultimately make this journey extremely memorable. This is such a good story about believing in Christmas and not losing your Christmas spirit as you get older, because obviously as we get older, Christmas seems a lot less magical to some. I myself am obsessed with Christmas. It's my favourite time of year without a doubt, but I do have a 3-year-old niece, and I'm starting to see how she is starting to understand Christmas and getting excited about it for Santa Claus and all of that, and I didn't realise just how much I'd strayed away from that excitement, if that makes sense, because in my house we're all sort of 18 plus, so it's so nice to see how Christmas is so different for the younger kids, and it's just brought back the joy and the excitement of Christmas for me. Next up, we have another film that when I watched for the first time I just absolutely fell in love with it, and it's so weird for me because that film is The Muppets Christmas Carol. I have never watched a Muppets film in my entire life. I've never really been a fan of it. I've never really understood why people enjoy it so much until I watched this film. I would have placed this higher on my list if I could, but once you see the last 4 films, you'll see why it wasn't really possible for me to do that. This is such an amazing film. It's such an amazing take on The Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens, and obviously I did explain the story to you earlier, so I'm not going to repeat myself, but this is a very different take on the classic than the animation's take on it, and I just love it so much. Even though the story is quite dark, and especially in this one it seems a lot darker at times, it's also balanced out by just the joy of some of these characters, and there are also songs in this which definitely lightens up the mood a bit, and is something I think you definitely need in a Christmas film. I feel like good music is essential, and yeah, this is so catchy, so entertaining, and I love it so much. So if you're like me and have never seen another Muppets show or film or anything like that, please give this a go. I absolutely love it and would highly recommend it. Next up is one of the most well-known Christmas films, and that is Dr. Seuss's How the Grinch Stole Christmas. This is one of my favourite films of all time. I absolutely love it. I love everything about it. It's so funny more than anything else, and I feel like that's just definitely what you need for Christmas. I love how whoever I watch this with, we always end up just laughing so hard, and it's just so nice because obviously when everyone's laughing at the same thing, it's just a really nice experience, and it's something that everyone can bond over, if that makes sense. So in this one we follow the Grinch, who lives in solitude just outside a town called Whoville. He hates the townsfolk and despises Christmas, but one day Cindy Lou Who, a 6-year-old girl from Whoville who believes wholeheartedly in the spirit of Christmas, sets out to try and reform him and to make sure that he experiences the Christmas cheer along with the rest of the people in their village. Again, I feel like this is one that I don't have to say a lot about because people just absolutely love this film, and for good reason. It stars Jim Carrey, who is absolutely hilarious, and I can relate to the Grinch so much in some aspects that it's actually quite bad. But again, this is another one that I rewatch year after year and I just can't get enough of it. Right guys, we have reached my top 3 favourite Christmas films of all time. Please comment down below what you think my top 3 are going to be. I feel like it's fairly obvious, but at the same time I'm not sure what type of Christmas films you guys like, so it might just be completely different, but please let me know what you guys think are going to be my top 3 because I would just love to know if any of you get it right. So in at number 3 we have another one of my all-time favourite films in general, not just Christmas films but just overall a film I want to turn to if I'm ever feeling a bit sad, and if I am missing Christmas, this is a really good film to turn to because it's not overly heavy on the Christmassy elements, but it's just absolutely brilliant, and that is The Holiday. This was one of my first ever times watching a Christmassy rom-com. I'm not really a fan of rom-coms in general, but when I first watched this one I fell head over heels in love with it because it's not your traditional type of Christmas film. What it is that two women end up being alone for Christmas, and so they post an ad to do a house swap. One of them lives in the countryside in England and one of them is a movie producer in LA, and so she has an amazing house. But both women are sick of their lives and decide they want a change for Christmas, and so they decide to swap houses for a week, I think it is. Both find the last thing that either one of them wants or expects, which is a new romance. And they discover that by changing your address you could actually change your whole life. And again, it's one that will make you laugh, make you cry, you fall so deeply in love with the characters and their backstories, and you just see how each character impacts the other and changes them for the better, and it's just so wholesome, so heartwarming, and it's just one of the best films you could watch this Christmas. For these last two I was kind of tossing and turning between which one would actually get first place, because these are the two films that I watch the most and that I am just completely obsessed with, so it was very difficult, and bearing in mind I have said that this list could change, so it's definitely not set in stone. But in at number 2 we have one of my all-time favourite Christmas films, which is Arthur Christmas. This one came out in 2011 and I remember when it came out that I was really hesitant to watch it for some reason, and I think I actually watched it in a sleepover because everyone else wanted to watch it, and so I decided, yeah, why not, we'll just give it a go. And this is just one of my absolute favourite films of all time. And in this one we follow Arthur, who is the youngest son of Santa Claus, but he is a bit of an awkward sort. He's the type that gets in the way of everyone else and he's sort of pushed to one side, and he's the one that actually receives, reads and replies to children's letters to Father Christmas. He is just one of the most pure-hearted souls, and you can definitely see how his family takes advantage of that, because one Christmas Eve a child is actually missed, which means that they will be waking up to no presents on Christmas, and Santa Claus and his eldest son Steve don't really seem to be too bothered by it, and so Arthur takes things into his own hands and is determined to deliver the presents to this child. And so he sets out on a mission to deliver the present before it's too late, so he can make sure that this child ends up having the most wonderful Christmas and that she doesn't have to feel left out that she has been missed by Santa Claus. Again, the humour in this is just absolutely top notch. I am always laughing in this, and I do actually cry a lot at the end of this film because it's just so wholesome, and again it's one that definitely shows you the spirit of Christmas and how even helping out one person can mean the absolute world to them, even if it doesn't really mean anything to anyone else. So I feel like it has such a good message. It's so fun. We follow Arthur all across the world as he tries to deliver this present, and obviously a few things happen along the way which doesn't make the journey smooth sailing, but I honestly love this so much, and I'm honestly debating watching it tonight. And here we are, we have reached my number 1 favourite Christmas film, and I feel like you guys will already know what it is because obviously it hasn't appeared on the list, and I feel like it is one of the most well-known Christmas films ever. And I actually don't have a physical DVD of this. I think it must be at my mum's house. I'm sure I have one. But anyway, I'll pop a picture up on screen, and that is Elf, one of the best Christmas films of all time. I love Will Ferrell anyway, and the films that he's been in, they are just some of my favourites because again, he can just make me laugh until I'm physically in pain. And I'm sure you guys know what Elf is about, but if you don't, we follow an orphan called Buddy. One night on Christmas Eve, Buddy actually sneaks into Santa's sack and he's taken all the way to the North Pole. When he gets there, obviously Santa finds him and he decides to keep Buddy there and raise him with the elves. However, one day Buddy discovers that he isn't actually an elf, which changes his whole outlook on life. And because of this, he travels to New York to find his biological father, who doesn't even know that Buddy exists. again, it's just such a brilliant film that just makes me laugh so much. I watch it every single Christmas Eve with my family without fail. We always make a point to watch it right before we go to bed because, like I said, it just brings you all together. We're all there laughing, we're all there sharing in this experience, and it just makes us so excited for Christmas. There is an element of romance in this. There is also the element of family and believing in each other even when other people might not believe in you, and it just emphasizes what is actually important on Christmas. It's not about the gifts and the decorations, but it is mainly about family and spending time with them and just spreading the love and the Christmas spirit, and it's one that will just never get old for me. I absolutely love everything about it. I love the fact that it is set in New York as well, because the things Buddy gets up to there is just absolutely brilliant. You can imagine a human being raised by elves and then travelling to New York by himself is not going to be an easy journey, and you just see how naive Buddy is in this place where people are kind of brutal, and he has to learn the hard way that he's going to have to try and be a little bit different in order to survive in this crazy city. So that is it, you guys. Those are my top 10 favourite Christmas films. Please let me know down in the comments if you agree with where I've ranked these films, or if you highly disagree and want me to reevaluate my choices. I would love to know. Obviously this is just a bit of fun. These are the top 10 films that I go back to every year and that I will definitely rewatch time and time again. Obviously everyone's tastes are different, so please don't have a massive go at me down in the comments, but I just thought it would be nice to let you guys know what I do normally watch in the lead up to Christmas and what my favourites of those are. So now that we've come to the end of this video, it's time to give you guys the Welsh word of the day, and for this one I've taken inspiration from the last film that I showed you, which was Elf, and we actually have quite a few different names for Elf depending on sort of where you live in Wales, but I'm going to tell you guys the one that I'm the most familiar with and the one that I'd probably use. Not going to lie to you though, if I was ever talking about elves I probably would just say elf, so like E-L-F-F, but the correct Welsh translation for elf is corach. So yeah, quite a difficult one, quite a bit of a tongue twister. You do use the back of your neck quite a bit when you try and pronounce that. But I will of course leave the phonetic way to pronounce it on the screen for you guys. You can try and pronounce it as well. And if you would like to participate in Welsh Word of the Day, then please leave a comment down below with Welsh Word of the Day and then what word you would like me to translate next. Right, that is it from me today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. It truly does mean the world to me. I hope you're all having a really good December, and I will see you soon in my next video. Goodbye!